Hey everyone, welcome to Team Phoenix Live. I think I just sat there for about 10 minutes talking to myself until I realised that I hadn't actually hit the go live button on the new YouTube Live Studio interface. So that was um, that was interesting. I thought everyone seemed a little bit comatose in the chat, um, and that probably explains why. So I do apologise. I do apologise for being a Yeah, oops. I do apologise for being a little bit late than advertised. Um, yeah, I just wanted to today just give a brief or my sort of brief preview of the new Netflix documentary. It's actually topping the charts in the UK at the moment, which is pretty amazing. And obviously, it's got a lot of eyes on it, and there's going to be a lot of new people as well to the case. So I just think it's quite good just to get our view of the case out there, or my view of the case. And there's stuff in the documentary that, or there's stuff that they missed out. I mean, it's impossible for them to be able to get everything into that documentary, right? Um, because there is just so much to this case. I mean, even as I was looking about what to talk about today, I was just like, what do I choose and what do I don't choose? It's just unbelievable the amount of information and the different parts to this case that make up the whole thing. But I'll say a quick few hellos. Hi Alwyn, hi Carol, hi Cheryl, hi Kimberly, hi Shan, just sipping my coffee. Hi Helen Rowley, hi JD. JD, don't worry, I've just spent 10-15 minutes talking to myself because I didn't realise I didn't press go live. So honestly, don't worry. Hi Roberta. Hi Sherry. So yeah, I've seen the documentary. I've seen it probably about 5 times now, and my wife watched it with me last night. And I always like to watch something quite a few times because I think if you give a review too soon, maybe after just one quick watch, I don't think you really take everything in fully. But there isn't anything. I mean, anyone who has studied this case for the past 2 years or at least a year, probably you're not really going to see anything new in it. But it does give a really great perspective from the victims. You really do get to know Shanann and Bella and Cece. Even if you didn't know them before, you really do get to know them. It's really put across well, and it just reminded me, how much Shanann loved her kids, and what a great mum she was, and what a great wife she was. I mean, they touch on things, and even Nicole Atkinson, I think, mentions jokingly that Shanann can be bossy and maybe a little bit overbearing. At the end of the day, so what? Do you know what I mean? Nobody deserves to be murdered. I mean, it's just absolutely no excuse in the world for that. And that's something that people have obviously brought up over the past 2 years and have tried to use that to either defend Chris or attack Shanann. And there's just absolutely no excuse for it whatsoever. Like I say, nobody deserves to take somebody else's life. So yeah, so what? So what if she's a little bit bossy? Who isn't sometimes? Do you know what I mean? I think so much is made of that. I think so much is made of that. And also the fact that, they didn't really touch on the Thrive, or they didn't really touch on the sort of money situation. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really, like I say, there's no excuse for what happened, what Chris did. It was just a heinous evil act. He's an extremely disturbed individual. Do you know what I mean? It's I mean, yeah, so what? They may have been living a bit above their means. Many people do. It's no excuse for what Chris did. But I know there will be people out there that have picked apart this case and always say that, our people only talk about certain parts of it. But I just don't think it's something that necessarily really needed to be touched on. If they had money issues then, and Chris had a real problem with that, then he should have spoke up and he should have sorted it out. It's really not that difficult, is it? It's the same with if you felt that he wasn't being heard, or you felt that his wife was being bossy. He needed to communicate that with her. You don't go killing your partner. And what about the children? Jesus Christ. I mean, like I say, there's absolutely no excuse for what he did. Like Judge Kopko, who sentenced him, he said, it's one of the most despicable and vicious acts that he's ever seen. And I think you can't deny that, can you? You can't deny that. So yeah, overall, it's a great document. How many people have seen it? And how many people are gonna see it? Just say seen it or gonna see it. I don't want to ruin it for too many people. If you want to see it, I mean, I'm not going to give too much away anyway. Saw it last night, seen it. Yeah, I think it's probably one of the best film slash documentaries that's been made about this case. Seen it, yes, most of you have seen it. So yeah, like I say, you do really get to learn about Shanann, don't you? And after 2 years after she's been, well, not just Shanann, her family. I mean, well, to be fair, both families, their lives have been dissected apart. Every single aspect of this case has just been ripped apart, hasn't it? People have literally dug down to the bones of this case, dissected everything. I don't think there's anything left, really, for people to discover about this case. We had an absolutely huge amount of information, 2,000-page discovery, and then on top of that, we've had Chris obviously giving his confessions, and of course he gave further details to Cheryl and Cadle, which they didn't really touch on in the documentary. So that's just something that I was gonna touch on. So Tony about seeing it, yeah, gut wrenching. It is. It really is, isn't it? It just reminds you just how just evil. It's just an act of evil. There's no other way to really describe it. And the fact that it's just why. I mean, why kill your children like that? Why do that? Why? It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and it never will. And I think that's why people just cannot understand this case, and they cannot understand Chris Watts. I don't know if people ever will. It's just unreal. Unreal what he did. Really, just to start a new life for somebody else, really? I mean, annihilate your family. Really doesn't make sense. But so it starts off, I'm just sort of going through it briefly. So it starts off with probably the piece of video that I would say probably caught the imagination of everybody, right? I think this is probably what brought most people to this case. I think this, if I remember, this is the first piece of video that I saw. This is Officer Coonrod's body cam footage, of course. I think this is the first piece of video that I saw that kind of captivated me.
How you
and
doing? What's that?
sucked me in, I think.
How you been?
Hi.
You Nicole?
Yes.
Okay. So what's going on?
The fact that you've got this
We were out of town for a
man
business
who's
trip
just
this weekend,
annihilated his
Right.
family,
and I dropped her off at 2 o'clock this morning. She's 15 weeks
and then all of a
pregnant.
sudden
She wasn't feeling well, and she had a doctor's appointment this morning at
hours
9,
later
so
turning up
let me
having
know if you
to
needed me to take her.
meet a
She's got
police
two little girls.
officer and let them into the
What I just
house
saw over the weekend wasn't eating
that he
normally
left
or
that
drinking,
morning
and
after
he
he
kept trying to force it on
annihilated
her
his
because she's
family. I
pregnant.
mean, it's just,
Her husband and her supposedly are
how
separating,
could that be not
but she didn't know
captivating
that
to
she probably was
anybody?
just having issues. He disclosed that to me today.
And
Okay.
that's
Because I
what
called
sucked
him and
people
I'm
in. I
like,
think
have
this
you
is what
talked
sucked
to
the
her
world
from
in
Shenan's when she
to,
left for
to the
work this morning?
case,
Because I couldn't get a
really.
hold of her. I called, I
And
texted. Her car's in
of
the
course,
garage. Her shoes she wears every
it was
single day
Nicole
right
the
at her
hero,
door.
She only has one vehicle.
No, they only have the one vehicle in his work truck.
Nicole the
Okay.
hero that
That's what I'm asking. There's
completely
not a.
The girls went on
destroyed
a play date, but they're
any
both in
chance Chris Watts have had of getting away with what he did,
taking a car.
right?
They're both in car seats.
As soon as she got the police there, he was done for. He was done for because he didn't
She
have
had
a
a doctor's
chance.
appointment this morning at 9
He
and
did
she
not
didn't
have
make
a
the doctor's
chance
appointment.
to cover
Okay. No answer on the phone. Husband's on his way.
They're
any of
both
his
in the bed. He
tracks
said that 30 minutes ago when I called him and told me he said he was 45 minutes out still. And I know the police.
at all.
You do?
I do, but there's a thing on it.
He was done for.
No, it'll be Kristen.
Suddenly his
There's
story of she
they
went
have
to
the thing flipped up here.
Oh.
she was
What about the
taking
garage door?
the
I
kids
guess
on a
so.
play date just got blown out the window, of course, didn't it, when they found Shanann's
Do you
phone,
mind calling
purse,
him
keys,
and
medication,
seeing if we can get a
car,
background
car
test? Give my
seats.
give me permission to go in.
He was done for, and he knew it. I
I'm just
think
gonna
he
check
knew
the
it.
back, see if I can see anything.
And I don't think it was long before the officers were onto
Alright,
him,
I'm
to
just
be
gonna look in
honest.
all the windows, make sure I don't see anything out of.
I
Do
think
they?
the officers knew pretty quickly that his story wasn't making any sense. And of course, when he started talking of marital discord and the fact that they had this emotional conversation, then of course his story just was just getting blown away. Of course, the officers did a really good thorough check of the house as well. He checked all the doors and windows.
Oh, it doesn't?
Everything was locked up. There's obviously one particular window that people seem to think that everybody ran out the
No,
back in a
nothing right
rowing
now
boat.
though.
Just the window down at the back. People say here where this window with the Mickey Mouse blanket is. Some people seem to think, or conspiracy theorists think, that that was an exit for people taking Shanann's body out the back. I hope if anyone hears that, they don't believe it, because it's just completely ridiculous. I mean, you've got like a 2 or 3 foot drop from that window down there. There's about a 2 or 3 foot drop down into the basement. So for somebody to carry a body out of that window up over that ledge out into the back garden is just absurd. Absolutely absurd. Some people say everything that Chris did out the front was a distraction. Was a distraction. But yeah, house was thoroughly locked up. And then of course, you've got Chris turning up and trying to act as cool as he can, but of course he knows he's
God,
completely
how you doing?
screwed. And I'm
So
sure
this is
he
the only
knows he's
vehicle she would
completely
have?
screwed.
She would drive? Okay.
Just out of interest, what do people think he went to the vehicle for? When he was interviewed, he didn't really seem to make any real thing about it. He didn't seem to, think that it was of any importance. But what do people think? What do people think he went to the car? Do you think he threw something in there, or do you think he um, took something out of the car, or do you think he was just thinking on his feet and just not really knowing what he was doing? Sarah says, I think he did something in the car. Yeah, I don't know if he was shook. Yeah, I'm wondering if he was just shook. Some people say maybe he got the ring. Yeah, so Sherry's saying get the ring he threw in there. Yeah, I think that's a possibility. I mean, it could be maybe he left the ring in the car and he got that out. Um, That's a possibility. But yeah, his plan is screwed. Any plan he had is screwed, right? Thank God for Nicole. Hi, Jaylin. Did he take Shanann's phone out and chuck it on the sofa? That's a possibility, actually. Yeah, that is a possibility. He could have took Shanann's phone out.
Okay.
I mean, this is ultimately
Last
what
what,
done
the
for
whole
him,
day
wasn't it?
or?
In the end, he had no chance to
Chris leaving?
get rid of anything or come up with any kind of real
What
story
about?
for why
There's no way
Shanann
you can
wasn't
look in the
there.
day
You know?
during the daytime.
Yeah, Mary Vice thinks it was a wedding ring. Yeah,
What?
it's a possibility. Isn't it? I think it's got to be either the wedding ring or maybe the phone or
Broken
something.
car seats are in the car too. So she left with the friend. She would have took the car seats.
But yeah, Chris was screwed from that point, basically, thanks to Shanann's friend Nicole. Getting the police there
Yeah,
that
if you don't
quick
mind.
was so vital.
Huh? Chris is in the house. We're standing outside his apartment.
And what a great friend to be, that on the ball that she knew about. I don't even think Chris really remembered about the doctor's appointment that morning, and
Can we go in the house?
he just didn't think that her friends would be
I mean, that's up to him. It's his house. If you guys,
that onto something wasn't right. I mean, he must have known that she had a massive
mind if I come
social
in, Chris?
media presence, and people were going to notice when she wasn't online. But there you go. Thank God he was so dumb.
You checked upstairs. She's not there. I just want to make sure she's not passed out somewhere.
Of course, they didn't look in the truck. They did take some photos of his truck. But they didn't look in his truck. I know they did later on take a caliber dog to his truck, and it showed interest outside. But they didn't actually look inside his truck. Maybe they may have pin him down quicker if they'd gone in the truck. But ultimately, of course, in the end, it didn't matter. So the documentary, you see a lot of that play out. As I say, that's what captivated most people, I think, probably to this case. And then you see a lot. I know a lot of you already seen it, so forgive me for telling you what you've already seen, but some people won't. But you see a lot of great family footage as well from Shanann's family, a lot of wedding footage, and you get a bit of back history of Shanann as well, which is really nice. And amazingly, she built her first house at the age of 25, which I thought was incredible. She's obviously very hardworking. She's got a very hardworking ethic, and then she touches on her lupus, which I'm sure most people are aware, even people new to the case, that Shanann struggled with lupus for a long time. And Chris was like she said, Chris was there for her. He was the best thing that ever happened to her, which just makes it even more just unbelievable how this story ended up. You know, yeah, beautiful home, $1 million house, yeah, absolutely, and immaculately kept as well, absolutely amazingly kept house. But yeah, the wedding footage, it was sad. You really get a feel, didn't you, as well, how close and loving Shanann's family are, the Ruzek family. That really sort of came across to me. You could just see how close they all were. And with Chris, they really loved Chris. They really did. They thought he was a great son-in-law and a great man for Shanann. And well, he was up until he completely lost his mind. Um, he was there for her. And what happened? It makes it even more mystifying, doesn't it? Yeah, it'll be great when Chris is not talked about as much. He fades away. Yeah. The trouble is, I think that with Chris Watts and this case, people are always going to want to know, just why and how he did what he did. Just to go from this normal, quiet, loving father and husband to ultimately how the story ended. I think people are always going to be fascinated with that aspect of it. Um, which is obviously going to get his name out there. And I think and apparently he was upset with this Netflix, but I think maybe he does like his name being out there. I think he likes the notoriety probably that he receives. So yeah, you see a lot of great footage from the wedding and all that kind of stuff. And of course the other bit of infamous footage, if I can find it, is the neighbor, Nate, of course, with the
Yep. Recording. Yep.
CCTV,
Is it motion or is it? Okay, so it's motion.
where nobody could look any more guilty than Chris Watts watching that. Of course, he doesn't know what they're going to see. For all he knows, they're all going to stand and watch him as he drags out his dead wife. Do you know what I mean? He has actually. I mean, look at him on his phone. And that's just outrageous. He's just standing on his phone. Of course, he doesn't know what he's going to see. And again, I think this is another piece of footage that just captivated everybody. It looks like he's about to bolt, doesn't he? And of course, Nate was on to him pretty quick. He looks as if he's going to pass out. Literally looks as if he's going to pass out. But amazingly, I didn't see anything at that time. Didn't see anything on that footage. Of course, we know it is there. If you look hard enough at that footage, you will see, and in it, it's hard to see, but you will see it. But it does play out, and it plays out as has Chris described. Yeah, that's when he knew he was guilty, hands on it. Absolutely. I mean, look at it. It's absolute textbook. Just take me in, handcuff me. It couldn't be any more clear. He just wants out of there. Last place he wants to be.
My
Standing
detective
there.
just showed up, so he'll probably want to talk to you. He'd probably, like I said, he might maybe call.
Of course, in practicality, they only watched, or here you only see like they're watching the first minute or so, and from when he parks his truck up, it's quite a few minutes until he actually starts to, take Shanann out to the truck anyway. It's at least, I think, 5 minutes, maybe more. So they wouldn't have actually seen anything at that time. So they cover that, they go through all of that, and they make a big thing about the North Carolina trip, which, of course, was a huge deal in the end. Now, I don't know whether some people debate possibly they were having like a trial separation. I mean, I don't know, but probably more likely Shanann just wanted some space. She wanted to go and see her family, but ultimately, of course, it played a huge deal in allowing Chris to live a single man life for 5-6 weeks. And of course, as we know, that then led to him having this affair, and it made it much easier for him to have the affair that he had. Yeah, on that CCTV when the ad of the baby in the womb and then the scar, that is absolutely freaky, isn't it? It's almost like a message from somebody to say, no, this is what's happened. Unreal, that was. Absolutely unreal. So they cover, yeah, it talks about North Carolina, and it's really sad how much Shanann starts to realise just how much Chris is not interested in her. He barely texts her, not interested in talking to her, not interested in talking to his kids. He's busy having his affair, and even when he turns up in the last week, he just doesn't want to be intimate with Shanann. He doesn't want to. He's just kind of not interested. It's almost like he has detached himself from his wife and his family, and ultimately, of course, okay, see you, Mary Vice, thanks for popping in. And ultimately now, of course, we know that he'd made up his mind, and that's one of the things that the documentary doesn't touch on, is the premeditation. Of course, we now know, after he's after his second confession and after speaking to Sherilyn, Cadle that it was all premeditated, and he actually tried to poison his wife and force her to lose her baby. Yeah, wasn't Chris being nice to Shanann just as she'd come home to Colorado? It's a possibility. But I get the impression he wasn't that nice at all out there. I think even his family, I mean, they did, didn't they? Even Shanann's family noticed that he was being a bit weird, and Shanann was suspecting. She was suspecting for a long time that maybe he was having an affair, and this kind of falls into one of the things that we're really interested in looking at. Us together with Kelly, the advocate, is as to what can we learn from this case, is looking for those red flags. How can we help to save somebody else? Because if you look at it, Shanann, she had this intuition and she knew something wasn't right, and like she said in the documentary, he'd never shut her out like the way that he was doing. She knew something was wrong. Her friends were telling her, is he getting it somewhere else? And she really strongly suspected it, but she just didn't want to believe it. I don't think she just couldn't. It's so sad. Right up until the end, she was asking Chris what he wanted for dinner, and she was just, if only she had followed her intuition and knew something wasn't right, and maybe not gone back to Colorado. But of course, it's hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But yeah, it's so sad, and yeah, if only. But yeah, so they do touch a lot on the North Carolina trip, and obviously they go through some of the polygraph. And what I found really interesting during the polygraph, of course, and it's come under a little bit of sort of debate really about this read technique. Is it something that they should do? I mean, obviously they used it in Chris's case to get him to confess, to give him a feeling of being less culpable for what he did. But of course, ultimately it led to people being able to attack Shanann and her family, because obviously they gave him an out, saying, did Shanann hurt the children? Of course, then you had to hurt her. And of course, he jumped on that. Don't know if anyone noticed, but it wasn't until they gave him that idea. Obviously, he ran with it, but it wasn't until he had that idea set in his mind that he then wanted to talk to his dad, to his father. It was only then that he had something that he felt comfortable enough to talk to his dad about, that he then kind of confessed to his father. But it was only then. He was obviously too ashamed and too sickened by what he'd done to tell them outright. Of course, this is actually the polygraph footage. But don't forget, of course, he failed every question. Yeah, he knew his dad would believe him. Yeah, that's
all of the questions truthfully.
probably right.
Yes.
But don't forget, they were all very much, at that time, they were all sort of very much against Shanann. There was obviously clear unrest between the families, and I'm not gonna get into any of that. It's not my position to talk about any of that. But
Were you born in 1985?
there was obviously a lot
Yes.
of unrest between the families, and I think that's all been talked to death before. I don't think that we need to go over any of that again. But yeah, it is sad, and and how how things have panned out since then. But the trouble is, I think everybody has just
Before 2018, did you ever see
been able
anything
to
out of
rip
anger to your
both
loved one?
families' lives
No.
apart, and it seems almost too much information has been given out. If you can look at it from a psychological aspect, I guess it's very interesting as to how it enabled Chris to build up this resentment. But ultimately, he could have communicated that. He could have, and he should have talked to someone if he really felt that miserable in his marriage. He only had to talk to somebody.
Do you know where Shanann is now?
But of course, yeah, he failed each polygraph question. Does he know where Shanann is now? Did he lie about the last time he saw Shanann? And did he physically cause Shanann's disappearance? And he scored -18 on the polygraph. And -4 is a sign that somebody is lying. He failed miserably.
Are you now in the state of Colorado?
It still baffles me today why he did it. Why he went in. I think he's just a bit of a dumbass. I mean, thank God he did it, but did he seriously think he was going to beat that polygraph? I know they're not admissible in court, but they're pretty accurate, right? But I do love the way they kind of Tammy used like
Before
reverse
2018, have
psychology
you ever wanted to hurt someone to get even with them?
on him
No.
by kind of saying, if you did do anything, you'd be stupid to be sat here, now doing this polygraph. If you had anything to do with Shanann's disappearance, you shouldn't be here. And that's kind of it's obviously true, but it's also a great bit of reverse psychology, because at that point he's probably sitting there thinking, okay, really shouldn't be here, but if I get up and leave, then obviously it makes me look like I've done something. So she handled that really well. She handled that great. Tammy. She absolutely psychologically nailed him. Well, they both did, didn't they? Tammy and Graham Coda. It was a fantastic exhibition of how to break someone down.
Cover things up
Yeah, but you kind of are because it's normal. Normal people
And
don't
of
do
course,
that.
then we had all
Normal
the
people don't say
confession and
anything.
everything. Well, the
Initially,
fake
you're gonna
first
go,
confession,
I
right?
don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do anything.
Which he's
That's
admitted he only
normal.
went with
Somebody
because they
expects that. It's just like if
gave
you
it to
ask
him.
your kid, did you write on the wall? And they go, no. And you're like, you have marker on your hand. Like,
Yeah,
I
and
know
that's an
you just
interesting
wrote on
point
the wall. And they're
Roberta
like,
brings up. I
oh,
don't believe
okay.
they had sex.
That's
I
a
think they
natural
argued
reaction
straight
of someone who can
away.
initially lie
She got
about
into
something
bed and he
like
waited
that,
till she
and
was
then eventually
asleep,
tell the truth.
then
So
killed
this is
her.
your
She would have fought him like a
eventually telling the
wildcat to
truth
save her
time.
baby.
This is where
Absolutely. I
this is
mean, that
where the rubber meets the road.
even Shanann's father said,
Like, don't let this continue any
he
longer.
thinks that Chris did it in her sleep because obviously she was a fighter and she would have. When someone fights for their life, right? They're gonna absolutely nail you as much as they can. The fact she had her kids there, and the fact she was pregnant. Yeah, I strongly feel as well that he could have even possibly drugged her. Obviously, we know he used oxycodone to try and get her to lose Nico. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he didn't use that more than what he's let on. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah, and he couldn't even right up until the end. He couldn't even admit to her, could he, that he was having an affair. His way of doing it was, as somebody has pointed out previously, and I totally agree with, his way of pointing it out was was that receipt. That wasn't it. That was his indirect way of saying, look, I'm having an affair. He just couldn't say it to her. He just didn't have the guts to even admit that to her, even right up to the end. So yeah, they touch on the polygraph, and of course they get him to eventually confess, but giving him the story that Shanann killed the children, which of course everybody knew was complete bullshit from the start. And he ran with it. And at that point, he then felt comfortable enough to talk to his dad, because, like someone said, he knew more than likely that they would believe him. But the whole time during that interrogation, the only real thing that he was interested in was himself. Even after he'd confessed, he's kind of saying like, "Oh, what's going to happen now?" In other words, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be arrested? Am I going to be put in prison? What's going to happen? It's so sickeningly self-centered. It's just unbelievable, even after what he's done. So yeah, it's fascinating, a fascinating interrogation. It's, even if you've seen it a million times, it's still extremely interesting. And of course, ultimately, we know how it all ends up, and they touch on the confessions, and but it's all done really well. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. They do it in a way that is very respectful, to the sensitive nature of the case, and how things panned out. And like I say, you really do get a feel that it's Shanann and telling the story. It's Shanann and her children that are telling the story to you, saying, "Look, this is our life," you know, and even up to the end, you could see it's very clear that Shanann was doing everything she could to fight for her marriage. It's plain as day. Um, in her letter, you see the second page of her letter that she wrote to Chris. And she's even there acknowledging that maybe she had been a bit overbearing, that um, that she was happy to try and make amends, to try and be civil with Chris's parents. And she was basically doing everything that she could to try and save her marriage, and to try and be a better wife. And that it's just so sad, absolutely so sad, that he chose to do what he done. But he's going to, obviously, he's in the prison for the rest of his life, where he belongs. And like I've said to Sandy before, he's got them to thank for his life, because that's the only reason he's still alive, is because they chose to not take his life at the end of the day. And there's absolutely zero chance of Chris ever getting out of prison. It's just never going to happen. People can talk about it, and they'll try and make noise about it, and maybe try and convince a few people that somehow it's going to happen, or somehow Chris is going to suddenly come up with some completely different confession that has absolutely zero evidence. But it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. How could you? How could somebody get out of prison after doing something like that? How could you allow someone to appeal after doing something like that? His defense team took the plea deal. They put the plea deal together. They took it to Chris and said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" He's like, "Yes." Apparently asked him 100 times, "Are you sure you want to do this?" "Yes, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do." He even told his parents that, "I'm doing this for a reason." Obviously, they didn't want him to. Obviously, maybe they believed that, his first confession, I don't know. But he told them, "No, I'm doing this for a reason." And obviously, it's going to be difficult for them to accept. I understand that. I understand denial, and that. That's a real thing. But he did it for a reason. And he's even gone on to say that, Shanann was a good wife. She was a good mum. And, for them not to put her down. So one of the parts as I said earlier, they didn't really touch on was they did touch a bit on his confession. Obviously, his second confession, which I personally think is true. I really don't see how or why Chris would make up a confession as graphic and as just malevolent as what he did. I really don't. Is there anybody here that doesn't believe Chris's confession, his second confession, second stroke third? There's got to be some people that don't. And that's your choice if you don't believe him. I know some people do think that there may be a different story to this, but so JD, you don't believe him. I guess you've got to ask yourself why he would, if what he's saying isn't true, then I suppose there's two kind of main stories, isn't there really? One is that he killed the children before Shanann came home, which would be the most logical one, and which even the FBI agent Coda kind of put to him during the interrogation. Or the other is what he's saying, it's true. And I know that there are people that can, I hate to bring this word up, the shadow, but there are people that can see it. Some people can't see it. When I look at this, I can see that child's shadow, and I can for sure, I hate to say it, but I can for sure see on that CCTV, I can see Chris dragging something because he's walking backwards and he is struggling, and I'm almost 100% sure that he is dragging out Shanann the sheet, as he said, and this all happens before you see the shadows, because according to his story, first he backed the truck up, he then took Shanann out, and then did a few bits and then got the children and left. And if you have that in mind, and I watch that CCTV, I can kind of see that. But yeah, I know there's a lot of people that still think that what he's saying isn't true. When people sort of say the third confession, for me, the third confession is more of an addition to his second. He hasn't really ultimately changed the story. He's just kind of added in bits to it. I mean, the most horrific part, of course, was the fact that he said he tried to smother the children in their beds first, and it didn't. They got back up. I mean, that was absolutely horrifying to hear, and that was kind of and of course he talked about the oxycodone as well, the premeditation of, and this I totally believe that he used the oxycodone to try and cause Shanann to have a miscarriage. We know she was ill in North Carolina, and I do believe his story when he says that. But I guess if you don't believe it, you have to ask yourself why he would make up that confession like that. The people that it hurts most, of course, is Shanann's family, but I don't believe that he would want to hurt them any more than what he already has. I don't know. I think maybe he was trying to give them, as horrific as it was, he was trying to give them closure by saying, look, this is what happened. But of course, no one can ever be 100%. sure if he's telling the whole truth. I don't believe there was anyone else, though. In my opinion, I do not believe that there was anyone else directly involved, because he would have said, I really don't think he would. He is not the type of person that's just gonna sit there in prison and take the hit for something. I mean, he tried blaming his wife. He would no doubt, in my mind, try and blame somebody else if he had the opportunity to do so. But yeah, JD says don't think we'll ever know what really happened, and that's probably true. We won't know the whole story. That there may be an even worse version of events that he won't ever say, and maybe we don't ever need or wanna hear that. But yeah, like Jenny says, he's guilty and he's where he should be. I mean, what more can you say to that, really? So yeah, I think those were the main pieces, really. That's the main things that are covered in the documentary. Say it's done in a kind of modern style, isn't it? With the text going across the screen, and you know, you get to get a feel for who's doing what at what time, and how the whole story pans out. Ultimately, it only took them 2 days to break him down and break it all down. So CJ Sleuth, I think there might have been, is that somebody else? He was obsessed with her. He knows nothing's going to change his sentence. No, nothing will ever change his sentence. Ever. He's never getting out. He's not. It's not even an option. Um, he signed away all of his rights on that plea deal. Everything. He signed away the right to have a jury. He signed away the right to have a defence. Signed away the right to have a trial. Everything. Signed away the right to even appeal. So that ain't never happening. But yeah, like JD said, I don't think we'll ever fully understand exactly what happened. I do have the piece of footage here from the CCTV, which I've just pulled together. The only reason I've done this is because I know there are a lot of people that are still. Oh, hang on. There's a lot of people that are still trying to say. Hang on, I've lost you. That nobody was taken out of the house, that everybody was taken out of the back, and but you can clearly see Chris dragging something out on the CCTV. It's very clear if you watch it. It's kind of one of the first things that he does after he's backed his truck in. And let me just see. I know it's going to be a little bit of a sensitive nature to some people. I mean, probably if you don't want to see it, then I'll probably just come back in 5 minutes or so. But you know, to me, I think it's quite clear from the footage. It's one of the first things that you can always tell when he's got the truck open, because the lights from the truck come on, the back light, the side lights, and there's like a big light at the back of the cab which comes on, which basically means that he's either unlocked the truck or he's got one of the doors open. But yeah, I have sort of zoomed in as best I can if you over zoom, but there is a point near the end of this clip where so he's basically there. So he's come out. He's come out. You'll see him here walk out, okay? And you'll then see the truck lights come on, probably most likely where he's opened the door. and in a minute you'll clearly see him walking backwards, and you can clearly see that he is dragging something. And as he described to Sherilyn, he dragged, obviously, he confessed that he dragged Shanann out in the sheet, and if you can see it there in that particular small section there, you can clearly see that he's dragging something heavy, right? So for people to say there's no evidence on the CCTV that he ever took anybody out, I would completely disagree with that. I think that this bit of footage is quite clear. I think you can clearly see that he is dragging out something very heavy. So I just want to blow away this conspiracy that nobody ever was taken out of the house. There's even people that say no one even died in the house. I mean, Armchair detective says that nobody died in the house. As he explained in his confession, he dragged Shanann out in the sheet. And I think you can see that. For me, I can see that from that CCTV. Yeah, he also walks right around to the other side after dragging. Yes, he does. Yeah, and pulls her, pulls Shanann through. Lights on the interior would come on also if there's a key fob to lock and unlock. Yeah, the lights on that truck are a little odd because it's got like front lights, it's got headlights, it's obviously got lights on the side as well on the wing mirrors, and there's a big light at the back of the cab. But it's difficult to know exactly when they come on and go off. But yeah, definitely if he unlocks, they will come on. As you saw when he first walks out on the CCTV. But to me, I think what his story, it kind of lines up with that footage. Now knowing what he confessed. To me, anyway. I know everyone's opinion is different, but yeah, it's obviously it's harrowing footage. Of course, they found bags as well. Yeah, he said that he covered Shanann's head and feet with black bin bags. I mean, and people, talk about this being a plan. I mean, there's absolutely no plan whatsoever. I mean, he put the sheets in the bin. He put the book that poor Shanann had bought him to help save, for him to read about helping to save their marriage. He threw that in the bin. The kids' toys are in the bin. He left the sheet out of the site. It just illustrates how dumb he was and how much of no plan whatsoever he had, I think. People talk about there being other people involved and accomplices. I mean, what was their role exactly? I mean, they didn't even. Do you know what I mean? They left the phone there, her medication, everything. Why would they leave all that there? It seems outrageous to me and very naive to think that there would be other people involved in some kind of plot or plan. I really don't buy that at all. Yeah, and Roberto, you're absolutely right. He cancelled the kids' school that same morning. He rang the school. He rang the realtor. I mean, how dumb can you be? Thank God he was. So I think that kind of covers most of it, really. Oh yeah, so I just wanted to cover actually just a bit about Sherilyn, what things that he said to Sherilyn Cadle. I don't know if you know, but Sherilyn Cadle is back. She is re-releasing her book that she kind of got caught plagiarizing, right? So she's re-releasing that book. And I think it's going to be called it's called something else. I'll tell you what, let me share my other screen with you, and we can just have a look. I've just got a few new articles that have come out. Obviously, this is gaining a lot of attention from everybody, including Nancy Grace. So this is this is an article, Nancy Grace. So she's just talking about. I mean, she's just kind of saying what I was touching on, that Shanann was trying so hard to please him and fight for their marriage. I'm just jigging my screens around a moment. And she's saying one of the comments that Shanann made in one of her texts was something to the effect of, "I never really thought how it made him feel that I do all of these things, and I like things a certain way." And we did see that she does talk about how she acknowledged that maybe she did belittle Chris a little bit. And, when she was saying that his family couldn't see the children again, obviously from a psychological aspect, that was a huge thing for Chris, because he wanted his children to see his family. But, of course, on the other hand, Shanann had absolutely very good reason to do that, because as far as she was concerned, they had put her children's lives in danger with the whole nut allergy thing. So they both really hurt by that, and that's interesting. Again, that's another reason that Chris may have built up in his mind. I'm not saying it's right at all, but the way that he would have built up resentment in his mind. Because the problem was Chris didn't know how to deal with it. He didn't know how to deal with his feelings. He didn't know. It appears he didn't know how to communicate how he felt. And that's on him. Yeah, you're right, JD. Shanann was willing to change. That's very clear. That comes across very clear as well in her letter. She acknowledged that maybe she had been a bit bossy, that maybe she was being a bit unfair, and maybe she, as I say, belittled Chris a little bit. But she was willing to work on that. She even in a letter says that she was willing to be civil to Cindy, and she was doing everything she can. You couldn't knock her for that. So yeah, Nancy Grace has been talking about it. And yeah, so this is quite interesting. She talks to Sherilyn Cadle, I believe, was actually talking to Nancy Grace by the look of it. And they were just talking about the home, and it says it makes it even worse that Shanann was trying so hard to please him. I noticed when I saw the video of their home that looked like it was out of Home magazine. Every room was staged beautifully, and I know that she did all that. Did he notice any of that? And Sherilyn says, what's really funny is he takes credit for that. From the beginning, when I went to the christening and spoke with him, and from the beginning when his mother called me, they took all of the credit for Christopher for keeping the house the way that it was. Cadle said he likely helped out some, but it was all part of his effort to create the image of a nice guy. But of course he didn't do everything. But see, this goes back from the beginning. She said when this first happened, he made everyone think that he was such a good person. Person after person that they were acquaintances with said on principle they'd never met such a nice guy. If you could take him and separate him completely from what happened, he seems like a very nice guy. It does. I don't know. It says here, Chris Watts' family still believes that Watts killed Shanann because he found her killing the children, Cadle said. And he's still in touch with girlfriends and mistresses he had while married to Shanann. I know he's got a lot of female attention. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And again, this is on Crime Online. She was drugged. Author who exchanged letters with family killer. Chris Watts says he's still lying about Shanann's murder. Let me just read this. I can't see chat while I'm just reading this. So, in the latest episode of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, Nancy talks to an author who has been corresponding with family annihilator Chris Watts in prison. So, of course, this is Sherilyn Cadle. As I say, she's back on the scene. She is back on the scene, and she is as I understand, her upcoming book, it's called The Murders of Christopher Watts. But as I understand it, it's kind of a re-release of the book that she had out, of course, Letters from Christopher. As we know, legally she had to change things because she got a slap on the wrist for copyright. So, anyone going to buy Sherilyn's new book? I don't think she's done herself any favours. Obviously, with this Netflix documentary, of course, everybody starts coming out of the woodwork again. The Sun running with the headline: Chris Watts' parents still support evil murderer son, but say they live with tragedy of losing grandchildren every day. I don't think you can knock. I mean, if someone's your family, I suppose you're always going to love them. You can't switch that off. But I would hope to think that they have come to an acceptance of what Chris did. I sincerely hope that. And that's Inside News. And yeah, so it's mainly about Sherilyn's new book. So I'm not exactly sure when it's coming out, but it's called American Murder: The Family Next Door. So yeah, that's a bit of new news for you. Okay, has anyone got any questions? I'd be happy to answer any questions. If anyone has any about the case or about anything really. Something that just quickly, before we fire in any questions, because we are, as I was saying earlier, one of the things that we're really looking to do is a second, just want to make sure I've got the right. Yeah, one thing that we're really looking to do to try and help others is ultimately, to learn from this case, is to try and look for kind of red flags, I guess, and to help other women or other people in this position to potentially get out and ultimately, I suppose, potentially save their lives. I mean, this is something that I know Kelly the Advocate's working on, and together with Shanann's Law, obviously Shanann's family are really going to be trying and pushing to create this new law against online harassment and slander, of course, as we know. And I think there's going to be a lot of quite high up people that are going to be watching that. And I know it's starting to attract, bigger attention than just like our small channels, right? It's starting to gain a lot more attention with mainstream media. And so that's definitely something I would encourage people to keep a close eye on and really get behind as much as you possibly can. Because I really do think that Shanann's Law is going to become a thing, and it's going to take off. I have absolutely no doubt about that. But something else that I certainly know that Sandy and Shanann's family and Kelly and me are very keen on trying to do is to help others and to learn from this horrible tragedy in the ways of helping people to look for red flags and situations maybe in their, if they're in a strained relationship where maybe something doesn't feel right, and if you feel vulnerable or you feel in danger, then maybe this is the signs that you need to kind of be looking for. I think that's really important that you take something out of such a horrific case. Yeah, so yeah, JD, that's media are seeing it. It is starting to get a much bigger voice, and finally, I think the Ruzek family's voice is really starting to be heard and starting to become a bigger voice. Us and other channels obviously have, we've been fighting obviously for a long time against the kind of harassment and conspiracies and all the stuff that's been tormenting them, and there's absolutely no doubt about that it has. But obviously we're only very small channels in the whole scheme of things. We're tiny, so it's great that mainstream media and bigger outlets now are starting to pick up on this. Because I mean, it's been 2 years, guys. It's like, how much longer is this gonna? Are people gonna drag this on? It's how long? How long do you keep doing it? How long do you keep beating a dead horse? And I just really don't. Yeah, desperate women, right? CW. I think you're right there. It's a thing, though, isn't it? Women do like that kind of stuff. Don't know what the psychology is behind all of that, but people do write prisoners, and they do people that have done the most horrendous things. They will get women right to them. Oh wow, look at that. So True Helper saying we've been in contact with 97 YouTube channels, 58 Facebook personalities. Damn right, Shenan's Law will prevail. Absolutely. I think there's probably some people out there that think this is just some kind of pipe dream. But I can tell you now, this thing is going to take off. I have absolutely no doubt about that. This thing is really going to take off. So, all I can do is just encourage people to get behind us, get behind Kelly's channel, get behind everyone that's been in this kind of fight, and get behind the Ruzek family, And ultimately, this is going to help everyone. This is going to help all victims, all victims of these heinous crimes. And hopefully this won't ever be able to happen again. And, with Armchair, I was quite appalled at that Google search. And I don't particularly like embarrassing people or stuff like that, but that really did concern me, that search. And that's why I kind of made a thing about it. Now I know that he says that he's being hacked, which we know is just complete bullshit, basically. But you've got this person sat up there saying that he's fighting justice for this victim's family, and he's just all he wants is justice. And then that when he's switching off his computer, he's looking up that kind of disgusting stuff and gambling sites, and it just really didn't sit well with me. It really didn't. Yeah, he'll say he was, yeah, and they'll believe him. People will believe him. People will believe him. I mean, what kind of hacker is gonna hack into your computer and start Googling William Hill and Netflix, Crowdcast, and then just pop in some extremely dodgy porn search? I mean, come on. Well, I'll tell you what, if there is children in that video that link takes you to, then that is worrying, isn't it? It really is worrying. That is extremely worrying, and that kind of really pisses me off when I hear that kind of stuff. But I don't know. You got to be careful what you say on lies. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me in trouble. But yeah, that really does both concern me and it makes me angry. But yeah, I wasn't joking when I said that maybe somebody's computer needs checking out. There you go. No, Shanann is not proud at all. I think she'd be proud of what her family's doing, proud of what all you guys are doing. No, definitely not proud of certain other people. Right. Okay, guys, I think I'm going to hop off. I came on a bit early because I promised my daughter a takeaway tonight. So I think I'm going to hop off in a minute and get her that takeaway. Thanks for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. As I say, I think most of you probably have seen the Netflix documentary. If you haven't, I certainly recommend it. It's certainly worth watching. Even if you know everything about the case, it's just really nice to see it from the victim's perspective, from Shanann's perspective. And I hope this kind of sets a marker really for any future documentaries, stroke films of this kind of genre. It's such a tragic film to have to make, but the way they've done it was great. It was very respectful and very, as I say, it just really gave a voice to the victim. So I hope that they can continue to do that kind of thing in the future. I hope it kind of sets a marker. Oh, thank you, Lisa. First time I'll be subbing. It's always good to see new people. I really appreciate that. It's it's nice to see new people here. But yeah, I appreciate that. And appreciate if anyone would just hit the like button on the way out. That would be most appreciated as well. But I'll love and leave you now. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. I hope you have a great Saturday night wherever you are. Thank you so much to True Helper, Kimberly, and Deb. I'm not sure if Deb could make it. I don't know. I couldn't keep up with all the chat. But thanks anyway for being here to look after you guys. Not that you need much looking after, because you're always such a great bunch. And yeah, you're right, Jane. It was very tasteful and sensitive, and the Rusex approved. They did indeed. So that makes it all the more better, doesn't it? But yeah, thanks, guys, and say enjoy the rest of your weekend. And like I say, if you haven't seen the documentary and you got Netflix, then I would definitely recommend that you watch it. But yeah, take care, and I'll speak to you all again soon.